Welcome to a Brief History Conspiracy.
This week, the destruction of the Twin Towers.
If you're new to our channel, please like and subscribe. It really does help us out. So, this week we're doing the destruction of the Twin Towers. So we're going to be arguing, was it demolished in a controlled demolition, or did it just fall down all on its own? All on its own. Two flames flew and there's a massive fire.
I think all on its own was... Yeah.
So yeah, we're not going to be discussing the reasons why this week. It's just this demolition argument. And people have been arguing about this pretty much since it happened. There's lots of reasons why they think there might have been this controlled demolition. But first of all, we'll talk about Mr. Silverstein.
Oh, right. The leaseholder of the World Trade Center complex.
So, about 6 to 7 months before the Twin Towers, in around April, he agreed a deal with the local port authority that he was going to take on the lease for 4 buildings, a 99-year lease.
Yep.
6 weeks before 9/11, the contracts were signed. And he redid the insurance policies that were in place, because before that they didn't really have a great deal of terrorist cover. And he really ramped that baby up.
So, almost like he had some prior knowledge of forthcoming events.
This was also a man that had almost no history working in property. No history construction in property, so I really don't know what he thought he was doing when after the event, when he decided to rebuild the complex.
Yeah, so, Freedom Tower. Yeah,
it's almost like somebody was okay with him having this lease for some reason. But anyway... So, yeah, he leased 4 buildings, including the Twin Towers and including Building 7, which we're going to be discussing in another episode, probably the next episode.
Yeah, I thought so, yeah.
Probably. One of the big arguments people use against a planned demolition is that any sort of demolitions, things like that, particularly a building of this size, remember it's 110 stories, tallest building in the world, and for years when it was first built. Would take weeks or even months to plan.
Of course. For a proper controlled demolition company, they do a lot of planning, don't they? Into these before they.
Lots of drilling. There'd be holes everywhere. There'd be wires everywhere. That's the idea of it. If it was a planned demolition, do you think that's fair?
I do think that's fair. However, I do think money motivates, and if you're paying a demolition firm off a very large sum of money to do it much quicker, I think they'll accomplish what they're being asked for that large sum of money.
I think that as well.
And avoid all the health and safety stuff that they normally have to comply with.
That's where I was thinking. There's a difference, I think, between doing a planned demolition where you want health and safety and you wanted it and a nice, neat compression, or you just want the building to fall down.
Yeah.
Particularly considering that you have just hit it with a plane and there's going to be large fires.
Yeah, so maybe controlled demolition is not very fair. Semi-controlled demolition.
Yeah, just... and we know for at least 3 weeks before this was going on, there was work being done within the Twin Towers.
There certainly was, yes. There were regular nighttime visits when the building was shut by contractor companies that were going in, performing some kind of renovations, maintenance...
Well, the official
explosives.
The official story is that they were they were fireproofing the lift shafts. I would argue they didn't do a very good job.
Well, no, because apparently didn't the jet fuel, when the planes exploded upon impact, create a massive fireball that went straight down the elevator shaft,
Die Hard style,
and then caused a massive explosion in the lobbies, which could explain why some of the first responders, the firefighters, etc., were describing explosions in the lobby and basement levels, and why some of them had to have reconstructive surgery to repair parts of their face where pieces of wall have just blown out and smashed glass, smashed their faces. And although conversely to that, there could also have been some explosions in the basement that caused that.
Now there are some.
It's difficult.
There was some eyewitness statements that there was an explosion in the basement first, before the even first plane hit.
Yes.
Now you've told me things about vaults in the basement before that I didn't know about, but then I've seen images of now that with the doors bust open.
Yes, there was some gold looting that was being attempted, wasn't there, from under one of the trade centre buildings.
Do you think they would have the balls to do that? Though, that if this was going to happen and they were going to that they would think, let's empty the vaults first. And these aren't little vaults. This vault was like something from, one of those old movies, like with a massive swinging door or whatever. It's not a small structure. They were massive. I think they genuinely have the walls to do that, to empty them first.
Money talks.
Minutes.
How much money's worth of gold was there in the vault that they were attempting to loot?
But that's the thing.
That's the real question.
You can't find out. You just don't know.
You can't find out. No. The only records were probably in Building 7.
I'm sure a lot of stuff was there on the quiet as well, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, of course, exactly. Yeah.
I actually think that if this was planned, right, one of the things I think about is that under World Trade Center 2 was the main water main.
Okay.
That is argued. I'm only mentioning Building 7 very briefly, but that is argued to one of the main reasons why Building 7 failed was because the sprinkler system had no pressure, so there's no water. But that would have affected the ability for obviously the Twin Towers as well.
Yeah, if it was connected as one big system.
Never mind the fire engines turning up. There was no instant sprinkler system because it's me thinking, if I know a terror attack is coming, or I've planned a terror attack of 2 aircraft going to go into the Twin Towers, and I want to maximise damage, would it be worth me setting off a small explosive in the basement to knock out the water main first?
Yes.
Possibly.
Yeah, well, if you want to maximise the damage to the building and therefore maximise casualties, yeah, makes complete sense.
So that's the one area that, I'd say I'm not a massive... The one thing with me with this building is it's not a normal building. Right? It's designed in a very odd way. It's got this very strong support structure in the middle with very long beams with the floors, and then this outer shell to maximise. It's like 95% air, this building, to maximise office space. It's designed to maximise office space.
Okay. Aren't most buildings designed to maximise the space
but then this,
inside there?
Not 110 stories up though.
No, true, but I would argue that most buildings are mostly air.
True.
You don't want a building that's 50% building and 50% space, do you?
No, but I want a building that doesn't fall down.
Your square footage doesn't quite seem as good as the exterior of the building, does it?
It just seems to me that they pushed what was safe to create space.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, I believe that in the middle of a densely populated urban area where they've built 110-storey buildings. Yeah, that seems reasonable.
But it seems to me that as well that because of the way it was built, maybe the way it fell looks weird. But maybe it looks weird because this isn't a normal type of building.
True, its architectural design is different, isn't it? Too.
It's unusual.
It's an unusual architectural design, isn't it? But you would have thought the architects and engineers that were involved in the design would still have had to meet normal stresses, strains, tolerances.
Well, I reckon a lot of the metal was at least, and a lot of it had backups built into it, so that the steel itself should have been at least 3 times stronger than it needed to be.
Right.
So even when the fires were burning, and they're saying the sort of temperatures they could get to wouldn't melt steel, but it would weaken it.
Would structurally weaken it still.
It would,
yes.
by about a third. It still should have been strong enough to hold up.
Okay.
But obviously it didn't.
No. So another interesting point would be, I suppose, the destruction of the towers. They appear to fall or fall to the ground, should I say, at near free fall speed, which is obviously near the same speed as if you were to drop an object off of the roof of the building.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make a lot of sense physics-wise when you're going through the path of the greatest resistance, having all of the steel girder structures and all of the concrete in the way.
There's a lot of metal in the way, wasn't there?
Yeah.
And they reckon it actually fell at about 2/3 that of free fall speed, but it was accelerating as it went down.
Yeah, well, of course it would accelerate as it goes down. But to accelerate at free fall speed at 9.8 metres per second squared would imply no resistance.
Difficult.
In order to accelerate, and it didn't fall at 9.8 metres per second squared. It was slightly less
slower
than free fall speed.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'd agree with 2/3, but
they reckon there's things. The inside of the building that you can't see as it starts collapsing, the smoke's coming through. The inside of the building actually fell slightly slower. So the outside of the building was just under free fall speed. The inside and the core part of the building fell slightly slower. So that is then roughly 2/3 free fall speed.
Okay.
The first outer section of the thing took about 8 seconds to hit the deck. The inner core took about 11 seconds. So it was just that little bit behind it. But which would make sense, because whether this is a demolition or not, it would make sense because that's where the strength is. The core of the building is where the strength is. It's where the most metal is, it's where the most things.
Yeah, it's interesting they managed to measure the free fall speed of the inside of the building that they couldn't see.
Yeah.
Or, sorry, the speed of falling of the inside of the building that nobody could see. But anyway.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know how they did that. I've done my research.
Yeah.
But
okay.
I didn't think to actually to check how they knew that. That's a good point. It's a good point.
And I'd also expected to see some kind of perhaps distortion off of the central line of the building as it's demolishing.
Just as it started to go, WCT2 was leaning about 20. The top section, above the damage, was leaning about 22 degrees.
22 was it? Okay.
And then when it went straight down.
Yeah.
So, which again, it seems counterintuitive, but I wonder if it's one of these things that once it started to go, you remember in this building weighed 500,000 tons.
Yeah, okay. So it's some significant weight with a large gravitational potential
to tip. There's got to be enough force to make it tip, isn't there? If there isn't enough force to make it tip, what it's going to do is gravity is going to drag it straight down. And I wonder if that maybe
distorts our sort of idea our view of it, and the fact that they're saying that it didn't really fall at free fall then, according to the official side of things, 2/3 of free fall speed.
So we go on to explosions and the actual idea that this was a demolition job. Right. So there were lots of reports of explosions and these squibs. Have you gone down these squibs of these areas when the windows blew out and it looks like there's explosive material come out. Right. So that's one thing. Also, there was a crap load of material that was blown, laterally out of this building and landed like 600 feet away. Which, on the surface, it sounds explosive. It sounds like some of these girders were shot out this building like a cannon.
Yes. Now you cannot explain that by gravity or by the building collapsing. Unfortunately, because you cannot create horizontal motion in an object by gravity that acts directly to the centre of the Earth.
I'm not sure about that.
No, you can't. Gravity cannot create horizontal motion.
Have you ever been squeezing anything though, and it's broken, it's gone across the room?
Yeah, okay. So gravity couldn't be the cause of it, the force pulling everything down. Yeah. However, if there was some kind of compression of materials, it could possibly
explode it out.
Cause something to pop out, couldn't it?
Which I think there would be a compression, though, isn't there? There's floors going bam, 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 bam.
There were sections of steel girders, though, found several hundred feet away in the sides of other buildings.
Yeah, 600 feet away is the one that was buried into the side of a building.
That's a big pop for a really heavy section of steel girder.
There's a lot of weight, though, isn't there? There's a lot of force going on.
The forces are phenomenal. 500,000 tons
going on. Yeah.
And I don't think we could fully claim to understand all of the forces acting.
The other thing I was thinking about as well is that as these floors are collapsing, whether it's demolition or not, again, you're going to have a lot of air being pushed down very suddenly. I think that would, any weakness in any of the glass or anything, that would blow windows out and things as it was going down, potentially below where if the building's coming down here, say it's the 60th floor is collapsing, around the 30th floor you could see.
I don't think broken glass could be seen as evidence of the demolition. Glass is brittle, it breaks.
Yeah. I mean, this is quite special glass, isn't it? Because it's built on a it's designed to be very strong.
Oh, it is.
Because it's on a multi-story. But the other thing is, when the plane hit both towers, it created a shockwave through the tower.
Yes.
There was, down on the 30th floor, NIST, the people that then investigated this and tried to find out why it happened, they reported that people couldn't open their doors. The place had distorted.
Even on the 30th floor from the original impact. Okay, so because it's obviously caused some kind of distortion to the structure.
Yeah, like a shockwave throughout the entire building.
So the doors got wedged in the frame, basically, because the frames moved.
It had changed shape. Somehow changed shape, like in a car accident when you can't open the door, sort of thing.
It was basically the cuboid, the cuboid shape of the door has then become more of a trapezium, hasn't it?
In
that sense. Yeah, it's that doesn't surprise me.
I'm trying to remember what a trapezium is. Right, GCSEs, 15 years old, and you're
Is it a
trying to learn about
trapezium?
shapes.
Or
No,
is
you're
it a
right.
parallelogram? Probably a parallelogram, isn't it? I think that's the one.
Oh God! You know, I'm going to have you searching pictures for different shapes. 'Cause I don't know.
You know what I mean? Yes, it's shifted. The door frame, hence doors been open. Yeah, that makes sense though, because of the severe, I suppose 500 mile an hour jet plane hitting the building. It's again the force involved is
phenomenal.
Yeah, it's huge,
hard
isn't
to get
it?
around.
So there were several eyewitness reports from first responders such as firemen and first aid or medical response that reported several explosions in the basement of the towers, and I think and that was after obviously the first impact had occurred in the
I've heard
towers.
a story
impacted.
about how there was a group of people actually in the tower when it collapsed that survived, which seems mad to me. They must have survived.
They must have just been in this amazingly perfect space.
They were reported to have heard the noise of the bam, 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 bam of it coming from above.
Oh, the actual So the supposedly the floors being what's the word, blasted off of the support columns, I imagine. But so also curiously on the day there are pictures of what appears to be molten metal pouring out of windows
like
and it literally like a river of molten metal falling out of the building. And I suppose there's a couple of schools of thought on that, really. It's probably some of the melted aluminium from the jet fuel.
Aluminium does melt at about 600 degrees, which would have been within the possibility for this
kerosene
fire.
Kerosene's what they reckon about 750, don't they, degrees centigrade.
Yeah. The fire would have been in that
sort of region. So it could have quite easily melted some of the aeroplane.
Yeah.
And then that was what we saw dripping from the side of the building.
Yeah.
The other possibility is related to a substance used for controlled demolition. Thermate. Well, it's technically the actual. This is very.
That's lovely. You have to be exact on this. It's technically thermite.
Yes, thermate is the brand.
Yeah.
Thermite is the actual substance used to cut through steel girders like a knife through butter.
Now, thermate is aluminium powder mixed with. It can be mixed a couple of different ways. Sometimes it's mixed with iron. Sometimes it's mixed with magnesium, and it can be mixed with boron and a couple of other things. Mm-hmm. But normally the byproduct of a decent thermite explosion, or it doesn't have to be an explosion, it can just be a
it's not necessarily an explosion, is it? It can literally just be used to cut through. You can imagine it almost like in the movies, isn't it, where you've seen it, where they just like put like plastic explosives and it just sort of fizzles in a line, and they get it to fizz rather than do one big explosion, and it just cuts through. And you can actually see that in the aftermath of the towers after they've demolished, where you can see steel girders sticking up with 45-degree angles cut on them.
Seem to be, And one of the things with so when you have thermite, a byproduct of it is iron, liquid iron.
Yes.
And there's one argument to say that the material we see is either iron or steel because of the colour. The aluminium is a bright silver, and this was that orangey, like liquid metal, like in a foundry sort of thing.
Yeah, no, it's probably a darker than an aluminium, perhaps. Yeah, I do seem to remember that from the day from the.
There is one argument to say though that even though aluminium melts at 600 degrees, there was a theory put forward a few years ago, basically that when the plane went into the tower, the material then would have fallen above, and when it started burning. But it would have the material would have fallen on top and kind of stifled the initial fire.
Yes.
But it would have basically created like a blast furnace. So it would have allowed the fire potentially to get much, much hotter. And once you get to around 2,500 degrees, which seems a lot, but there are some records that say that the fire possibly could have got in areas up to this sort of temperature.
Okay.
Aluminium burns. And when aluminium burns, it's not nice. It's really very quite dramatic.
But we were seeing molten metal, which is only liquid metal. We weren't. So what you're saying is it burns at 2,500, turns into a gaseous state at that.
And then it could have melted the steel. and then we would see iron, because of a chemical reaction,
Right,
the steel would
okay,
start
I'm with
breaking down potentially. You'd have liquid steel, liquid iron, liquid... Right, okay.
So that adds some serious weight to the demolition side of things. When you use the same companies to clean up that you used to set it up.
But he argued it was 2 terror events. So he tried to get 7 billion.
Wow.
He actually won in the end 4.6 billion. But then he sued, like you just said, he sued the airlines. If it was destroyed by the collapse of the building, then why didn't the sprinkler system work? And it's very clear that the sprinkler system was
destroyed
damaged
prior to the destruction of WTC1.